Flow podcast. I'm Shaun the Hustle.
And I'm Les the Flow.
Let's go.
All right, today we've got a special guest with us, a friend of mine who I've known for more than 15 years now, Justin Fox. Justin is a man who needs little introduction when it comes to the Sydney art and pop culture scene. He's a true artist in every sense of the word and is a great advocate for creative expression through whatever medium that he feels appropriate. Justin has been creating and building multiple businesses for over 20 years with his first, Australia in Front, a collaborative project space nurturing and empowering Australian design, which he founded back in 1999. Since then, he's founded a number of hugely popular online communities, such as JDM Style Tuning, Bikes Move Us, and VWGolf.net, to name a few. More recently, he's also the founder of Zen Garage, a passion project bringing together and celebrating all things creativity and culture. So, thanks for joining us today, Justin.
Cheers, guys. It's always interesting for me to hear my bio, and it's almost like what people say. Read out a bio like that. It kind of is like a reminder of the different lives you've had, you know, because I feel like with every project that I start, it's a different me.
Yeah, right.
So when you rattle off some of those achievements or whatever you want to call them, I can't really remember what it was like to be that person running that thing.
Yeah.
You know, like I was definitely always 100% in. I was always obsessive, compulsive about whatever businesses I've ever done. But it is always fascinating to me that at some stage in the life of a business, you might have to hit the eject button for whatever reason. Most of the time for me, it's, I'm just not as passionate about it as I need to be.
Yeah.
In order for it to keep being successful and keep growing. Or sometimes I feel like with Australian In Front, for example, that was born from me being in design school, and we had an overseas designer come over to give us a pep talk from London. And she took one look at me, and I had like hair extensions and ripped up pants and I wore heels and shit. And she said, "Oh, look, like you're never going to get a job dressed like that." And I took it the wrong way, you know, like, "Oh, yeah, how dare you? Like, what does it matter how I dress or what I look like if I'm a good designer, right?" So, you know, In Front was born from, I got sick of seeing all these kids copying the styles that were currently hot from Sweden or whatever. And I'm like, well, why don't we take inspiration from our own backyard? Australia has the oldest living culture in the world. We have the most venomous animals in the world. We have so much cool shit that you can use to inspire our design work. Why would you think that we're like the outback? So the opposite of outback was In Front. So that's when In Front was born. It was like me rallying the, you know, teens and 20-something-year-old creatives and saying, you know, fuck copying all these guys from overseas. Let's kick ass and be proud of being, you know, Australian and show the world what we're made of. Yeah. And, you know, 10 years down the track, I think Australian design is on the map. You know, we are so proud now of what we're capable of. So yeah, sometimes projects do end because they reach a mission or something like that. But you know, speaking of projects, it's interesting that I currently don't have one. And it's a funny time to not have one. Like, you think all this time in the world would help me to find what the next thing is, but I don't think that's how it works. Like, I don't think you sit there in you know, your 5 hours that you got spare and desperately try to come up with the next thing. I think to a degree it's always fallen in my lap.
Yeah. It's a really good point, and I think we'll talk about that a lot more during the conversation, mate. But for the audience, mate, if you want to, you know, say a bit more about who you are, where you come from or where you're going? Anything that you want to talk about?
Yeah, that's a pretty open-ended question, but like I was born here in Sydney, and I wrote a piece about this a couple of days ago, actually. With all this COVID stuff going on and a whole lot of racism towards Asian people going on, I feel like I've been lumped into something bigger than something that I can just easily ignore. It's like it's bringing up feelings that I had when I was a teenager. So growing up in Sydney was interesting. I had really strict parents, and my dad was really strict, he's Chinese. My mum was Indonesian. She's Indonesian, and just being bullied every day because I was one of the only Asian kids in school. That really changed my life a lot. Like, it really consumed me a lot when I was younger, because I just wanted so badly to be Australian. Like, I wanted to date girls with blonde hair and blue eyes, and I wanted to, you know, fit in so bad that I was like smoking with the cool kids and drinking and, you know, everything I could to fit in. And, you know, I feel like after the 2005 Cronulla riots, a whole lot of that attention was taken off Asian people and put on anyone that looked Middle Eastern. So I feel like since then, the racism hasn't been there. So it's really strange for it to be back. So there's some of the things that I had on my chest, like, you know, for the last few weeks, and I got it out. Like, I think it's something that I really like to do is just to rant every now and then. So I'll use social media to just get everything down as if I would be writing it in my own diary. I don't think I have a filter, and I'm not scared to be vulnerable or to tell people exactly what I'm thinking. You know, I try my best not to react too much to the comments, and, you know, but then again, a lot of the time I get some really positive stuff in the comments, which is really cool too. Yeah, so that's me. Like, that my growing up was really trying to fit in. My dad was a fine artist, so he taught me how to draw, and come year 12, I was obsessed with art. I would G classes just to paint all day. And from there, I studied graphic design, which in many ways I used, I don't know, it was maybe halfway through uni where I was partying so much in College of Fine Arts. You know, I was always at the pub, always partying, and just doing enough to pass. I was just doing enough to get a pass on my projects. And then this mature age student said to me, you know, you've got a problem there, like, because I kept saying go with the flow, and he's like, only dead fish go with the flow. And he said to me, you've got to make the course work for yourself. Don't just, you know, party and do stuff to pass. You've got to make it work for yourself. And since he said that to me, every brief that we got, I decided to turn the brief completely upside down and rewrite my own brief and do what I really wanted to do. So, like, for our major project, a lot of people, it was a project that would span the whole year. A lot of people did, you know, we're going to make a fake identity for a food fair that's going to be in Hyde Park. And they sat there doing their fake logos and fake aprons and fake stall designs and stuff. And I thought, what the fuck is the point of that? Like, you got one whole year to do whatever you want to do. So I thought I'd go through all the diaries, handwritten diaries that I wrote in year 11 and 12. Every day I'd write a diary. And I thought I would go into Photoshop every day with a page and illustrate that page into, from words into something visual, so that it was a visual diary, and that I wouldn't have to read my old diaries anymore. I could just flick through this picture book and I would remember things. So I made a memory container. That was my brief to myself: design a memory container. And my lecturers were like, "Ooh, this sounds interesting. What's that?" But I knew all along what it was going to be, but I had to just reverse engineer it, you know, so that I could do what I wanted to do. So I think, you know, uni taught me a lot, even though graphic design is a commercial thing. I'm not a huge fan of, I'm not a great team player. Like, I've always found that I needed to create my own thing. I've always needed to be my own boss. But I spent a lot of years in graphic design, and I don't know exactly what it taught me. I made a lot of money. I was there for the .com boom, and I was charging like 15 to 30K for simple HTML websites and stuff. So I definitely got a great start to my finances, but I'm quite anti-corporate, if anything, these days.
You and me both, mate.
Well, yeah, same with your story. It's like, it's very easy to be successful within a commercial project. It's very, very easy to get there and feel like you're patting yourself on the back and you feel like you're doing well. And you still sort of feel like you're making marks in the wall. But then when you sort of step out of yourself a little bit more, you realize like, well, this is not going to amount to anything really. Or if anything, it's just making somebody else more powerful than yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think,
So yeah, that's a bit of me anyway.
Cool, man. Thanks for sharing that with us. I think it gives the listeners a good insight into, I guess, a bit about who you are.
A little bit, yeah. I go sideways, man. Like,
That's cool, man. That's cool. And I'm sure we'll go sideways a lot today.
Yeah, cool.
As we always do on our show, we tend to center a conversation around a certain topic, and we thought, given who you are, Justin, and art is clearly a central part of your life and has been for such a long time. We thought today's topic could be art, and I'm sure we'll go in tons of different directions on that.
Yep.
About just going back to what you were saying last, which was being a part of a corporate machine, I guess, and it's easy to be a part of that and feel like you're making progress and pat yourself on the back. But it's also really hard to express yourself in those sort of environments, right? Like the three of us, we've all been in corporate and now we do our own thing.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that mirrors kind of, being in business for yourself and art is being able to express yourself.
Yeah.
Because to me, art is really just a manifestation of expression. That's what art is to me.
Yeah, I think pure art is that. It's like, if you, I think a lot of people confuse art, or some people will just say, I hate fine art or whatever, or they don't really understand what they're saying. I think a lot of people will think that artists are superhuman for being able to paint that painting, and I couldn't possibly paint that. But if you can sign your name, you can paint. It's the same thing. I remember seeing a famous typographer, David Carson, speak in Australia, and he was showing some of his work during this presentation, and he put one piece up and he said like, oh look, I moved that letter up to the top left corner because I have this artist's intuition. And some people call me quite brave for that, for doing that or whatever. And I was probably the only person that said something negative when it was the Q&A session. I put my hand up and just said, how dare you say that? You were born with the skill to, you were born with the artist talent to have that intuition to put that there. And I said to him, like, that can be learned, and I also said to him, you're not brave. Like, if you went to war or something like that and you flew a bomber or something, like, yeah, you'd be brave, bro. But like, because you move that letter up to the top left corner, you're not brave at all, bro. And everyone was like, boo, boo, sit down, But like, that's the thing, like, like, I'm not a religious person, but I think the Bible says you're not meant to have any idols or something like that, something along those lines. And I just try not to. And I think that's the thing with art. Like, I think everyone goes through emotions, and it's just that some people don't know how to express it. Some people might express it in the gym, or everyone has different ways of dealing with it. But when you're an artist, it's very easy to express yourself through painting or drawing or whatever your medium is. A blank canvas is such an exciting thing for me. Like, sometimes I'll have a couple of blank canvases around different rooms of the house just to stare at, like, what could be. I don't know what that's going to be in the end, but a blank canvas is it's a good analogy actually for a fresh start. you know?
Totally, totally.
Mm.
And it's a really good point. I mean, you can talk about art in so many different ways, and I think you mentioned a really good point previously, just about this this balance we have to play or try to play with commercialization and trying to, I guess, exist in this world as and be an artist as well. It's almost like there's some trade-offs or some sacrifices that need to be made from your.
That's a savage topic, man.
Mm,
Like, I think, you know, a lot of the time when I do a rant on social media about being in a shitty place or something like that, I'll have a lot of people that will look at, you know, the house I live in or the car that I drive and just go, well, fuck you, man. You have no reason to feel like that because you've got this.
mm,
And I'm like, well, you know, or people will say something along the lines of, well, I need to work. I need the money to survive. Um, I'm sorry, but I do discount that. Like, you know, I mean, I went to Africa last year, and just to see people with absolutely nothing, not even electricity, have the hugest smiles on their faces all day long. It's just blew me away.
yeah.
You know, like, I don't think you need to choose to have the latest iPhone, or there's a lot of things that you can live without. And I think it goes back down to what you value and what you place your values on. You know, I think if going back to art, and then, like, if that was your release and something that you found precious, but then some commercial entity comes along and an opportunity comes along for you to make money doing what you love, it's a really dangerous, savage topic. Like, it's a really dangerous thing to do, is to get paid to do what you love. You know, I love cars, and I don't know one single mechanic that loves cars. They work on cars till their hands are broken, and their hands are dirty nonstop, and they hate cars.
Man,
You know?
it's so interesting that you bring that up, because I actually believe that a lot of the times when you try to monetize your passion, it's not going to be a passion for too long.
Right. And it's like, it's the temptation is so huge though. You know, you make something and you make it well, and then someone really wants it. And sometimes it doesn't take too much for someone to twist your arm. And then before you know it, you're on this path that you didn't intend to be on.
Yeah.
So I think money influences people in many ways, and sometimes definitely for the worse.
Yeah. And I think you yourself have experienced that throughout your career, you know, and you mentioned before that at the moment you're pretty flexible, you're pretty free, you know, in comparison to, you know, your busy history in the last 20 or so years.
Sure.
So tell us about that, like, you know, that difference, and you talked about, you know, projects having to end and things like that. I think that's super interesting, right?
Well, last year I ran a commercial graphic design company and a photo studio as well. And the reason being, 2 years before that, I fell off the rails completely. I was completely addicted to marijuana, and I was like, you know, 420, the whole concept of 420 is that 4:20 p.m. comes along and then you have a smoke. But I was waking up at 4:20 in the morning and smoking, you know, and passing out all day. And I was like smoking an ounce a week. So I was basically a zombie, and I'd lost all live and energy to live. You know, I just absolutely lost myself. And I met some really sort of key people that weren't part of my circle, but became really important to getting me back on the rails. And so we created 2 companies last year, which I was confident that I could run. You know, I've been there before with graphic design, so I knew that this wouldn't be a problem for me. And if anything, you know, it really helped to have these guys. I would see them every day, and we would work on, you know, commercial projects, and I'd still have that creativity, and there was money coming in too. So it was all like, you know, oh, this is cool. It's good. It's weird to be back here, but it was good. Until maybe December, we were starting to get bigger jobs, and we shot Santa Claus, which is hilarious, man. Like for a big shopping mall, and I'm like, fucking hell, I never thought I'd ever shoot Santa Claus, you know? Never thought I'd do something like that. That's next level commercial. There's cool work, and then there's work like that, which is like, it's hard to look at as being cool. Like maybe your relos would be like, oh, you know, Justin shot Santa for the mall, you know, it's cool. But it's like, for me, it was pretty weird, right? And then the worst thing about that job was that the agency that we did it for said that we weren't allowed to share our work. You know, they don't want the mall knowing that this small company of 4 people, did this big job. And I had to draw a line, and I drew a solid line, and I just quit. I just basically bailed out on instantly. I feel like it's okay to do that commercial thing because you haven't done it before, but I've done that before. Like, I feel like I've done my time. I've done my time, and I don't need to do it again. So that whole concept of compromise, that word with a capital C, is a scary word for me. Like, I think a lowercase c compromise, I might be able to do every now and then. No problem, sort of. You know, I try not to even go there. But to compromise so hard that like you put some creativity into something, but you can't own it, that is next level for me. And it's like, oh, I feel sorry for people that do that day in, day out. You know, it's not fair. It's not right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sort of speaks to this, you know, this difficulty that people have in modern society, right? It's that, you know, we're always teetering between or walking between these two lines of, you know, trying to express ourselves authentically, but also we have this this pressure of trying to uphold something or be somebody within the context of society, right? And that it's like you said, it's very easy to fall into that trap and just be detached completely from who you are and what you need to do as an artist.
Oh, big time, man. I think when you talk about, like, society is a really big, scary word too, you know? Like, I used to throw it around a lot, that word, but, you know, like, society to me now is like, well, yeah, if you're going to have that big 75-inch TV, flat screen with your latest iPhones and, you know, a nice European car and brand label clothing and stuff, then, yeah, you're going to have to work for it somehow. You know, but I also think that I've always sort of thought that job stood for just over broke. So a job wasn't necessarily this thing like, yeah, I've got a job. You know, it's more like, oh, fuck, I've got a job. You know, oh, fuck, I've got to go to work.
Totally.
You know, it reminds me of like how in high school we all wore those tight shirts and tight trousers, and we had these ties, you know. Everyone had this tie, and like, you feel like, oh, fuck, I got this fucking thing around my neck. And then you go to work and people are going to 9-to-5 jobs and they're like, it's like a noose. They're like, going to work every day, you know? But then you watch an old Harvey Keitel film and it's like fucking putting on a tie like a fucking suit of armor, you know?
Yeah.
Fucking felt good in it, you know? And that's a different way of looking at it, you know? Like, if you're putting the tie on because you want to own the day, and that's cool, you want to be the boss. But if you're putting it on, like, you know, if you're spending the whole Sunday, and there's no, you know, you talk about balance, there's no balance, right? It's a 5-day working week and a 2-day off. There's no balance in that, right? So then on Sunday, you're spending your whole day complaining to people, oh, fuck, I've got to go to work tomorrow. So really, you've only got 1 day off because Sunday is spent fearing the next day. Right, so it's a severe imbalance, and it's a severe unhappiness that a lot of people are settling for.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I think that's like a super interesting word as well. Settling.
Oh, settling. It's a scary. There's so many scary words today.
Scary words coming up, but like if I zero in on settling, man, I feel like a lot of people find themselves in that situation where they're just on Sunday. They're feeling that drudgery of having to go into work, right, for their job, and then what they have to do. But what's crazy about it as well is, like, if you do work at a job where you have to wear a suit, like you're waiting for someone else to tell you, oh, I think you did a good job this time, so I'm going to give you a bit more money. And then you're likely to go spend that money on another suit that you can wear to the job that you were waiting for the guy to tell you were kind of doing a good job at, to give you a bit more money to buy more suits.
It's cyclic.
Yeah, man. And once I thought about that, in my younger days, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, and then you're also, no one talks about it, but when you work you work corporate, or you work at a job when someone else is calling the shots, you're essentially handing over to them to tell you what you're worth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're being underpaid, then you're saying even more about yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And that's such a good point, man, because you're accepting that or not as well.
Exactly.
Right?
It's your choice, right?
Totally. It is your choice. And if you're, accepting that pay, whatever it may be, and it's not what you think you're worth, you're settling.
Yeah.
And how you do one thing is how you do all things, right? Figuratively. So if you're just settling in that part of your life, what else are you settling for? And you're just settling for things in so many areas. Like, you just settle for the fact that you only have Saturday to enjoy. But that's your choice as well. But you're making all these choices, and settling just fucks so many people, man.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's easy to talk about the negatives, but then you have a whole lot of people listening right now, probably, or listening in future, that are like, well, maybe they've got a mortgage or children or something, and then they're throwing everything we're saying out the window because there's no solution. We're not talking about a solution. We're not even trying to. And it's a difficult thing to talk about. It's a hard thing to, like, it's an easy thing to pinpoint these things that make people unhappy, but it's really hard to think of ways to find a solution to that.
Yeah.
That
and I
problem.
think there's tons of solutions, though.
Of course.
And it's, for some people, having a job is a solution.
Right.
It just comes down to what people value, right? Like, if you really are interested in having a house and you're cool to pay that mortgage, and you want certain shit that's material, that's cool. I'm all down with that.
Yeah.
But make sure you're not selling a piece of your soul for it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's hard to. It's like constantly adjusting those values.
Yes.
It's like, I think, like, some people genuinely love their work. And we talk about, like, doing what you love and being paid for it. That's different to finding a job that you don't mind doing. You like the people there, the boss. You like the boss that you work for. It's like going to school. It's like, we kind of didn't really like it, but in reflection, school's pretty essential and pretty awesome as well. Like, lots of amazing things happened in school as well.
Yeah.
So I think there is that value that you have growing up. Your parents probably suggested that you can't just play all the time. There has to be some sort of balance.
Yeah.
So I think people are probably naturally geared to understanding that there does have to be some compromise somewhere if you want nice things.
Yeah.
But I think as I get older, it's very easy to devalue things that I used to value.
Yeah.
Like, it gets easier and easier for me to not care or sweat so much about the little things. And I think that is something that it's hard to have this talk with someone who's only half of my age, because it's easy for us to be influential on a young 20-year-old person, but at the same time, they still have to just go through that shit and do their time.
Yeah. And I think everything has its time and place. Like you said, it's really easy to talk about the shit points of something, or the things that you don't like about it, but there's a lot of benefits that come from being in certain environments at certain times. Like, when I was in corporate in my younger days, like, it taught me to be mature when I needed to be mature. It taught me responsibility. It taught me a lot of good things, and I also met a lot of cool people during my time. But you hope that as a person you progress and you evolve. And I'm not saying that your evolution has to be from corporate to hating it to doing your own thing, right?
No,
Not at all.
No, you could spend your whole life in corporate and have a completely fulfilling life. Absolutely, yeah.
For sure.
Just depends on what you value. Yeah,
that's it. And that's what I'm getting at. It's like, you got to work out what you value about it.
Yeah.
And things like, for me, you know, Les and I talk about it. I'm not really a big proponent of balance myself. I think shit balances out in the macro. You know, you mentioned that you're like obsessive compulsive about certain things at certain points in time.
Right.
But, you know, maybe over time you were super focused in one area and then you're super focused in another area at a different point in time. And if you level it all out, there's a balance there.
I like that. And I think that's bang on, because you can't be go all the time. You've got to have downtime as well, you know. And I'm with that. Like, I think it's just so strange when you look back to things that you valued so much that you just don't place value on anymore today. It really does feel like another lifetime ago, you know. And I think it's just like, where, you know, you look at you go to a pet shop and you look at mice for sale, and they've got these little plastic wheels for them to run on, and little bells and whistles and for things for them to play with. I think that's kind of like a good analogy for human beings as well. It's kind of like, well, we get bored pretty easily, pretty quickly. So I think, you know, you could look at a corporate person as being like a mouse on a treadwheel or something like that. But hey, you're not on it forever.
Totally. So it's your choice to sort of step on and step off, right? It is a choice that you make.
Exactly, right. So I think, you know, I refer to it as like, you got to do your time. Like, it's really hard for you to have this kind of way of thinking before you've been there before.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's like that's why the whole Jimi Hendrix and Are You Experienced, and like, it's like, it's a really good question.
Yeah.
You know, if you're speaking from experience, then hell yeah. And if you're a 20-year-old screaming to the whole world saying, fucking listen to me, then you got to wonder, if no one's listening to you, it's probably because you haven't necessarily maybe experienced enough of life yet.
Yeah.
Man. You know, if you're 20 years old and you're at the gym and you're showing off Instagram how pumped you are, and like that you did, like, you know, 8 hours of lifts or whatever that day, then you're going to be like, well, I'd be like, well, fuck, do that when you're 45 and I'll be impressed. But you're fucking 20, man. Like, you could do that all day. I could do that if I was 20 as well. No, not to devalue it, but it's just funny. Like, the perspective's different as you get older, you know?
Yeah.
It's super important. It's a great point, man, because I've been reflecting on this a lot in the past few years. And, you know, just recently, more so than ever, you know, there's this word that really just continues to pop up in my mind, and it's about initiation. You know, however you want to put that word, right? Initiation just tells there's a real grit to a process that needs to occur for oneself, that we need to experience for oneself, to walk those footsteps ourselves, to create those footsteps for ourselves in order to learn the lessons that are there for us, right? You can be one of those guys who just sits at home and just reads and reads and reads and reads, or you can study all you like and get hundreds and hundreds of, you know, different master's degrees in whatever you want. But until you actually balance that out with an application in the real world in some way, it's not going to be real, right?
I think that's why being an artist, you negate that whole conversation, because you know, like, the whole concept of an art critic doesn't work at all, because if you're an artist, you don't care. Like, you don't care what people think, because you need to get that expression out. You need to get, it's your obsession, right? It's your way of getting emotions out and getting your whatever's going on in your head out. And it's very easy for someone to criticize someone and say that person's, oh my God, those drawings are horrible. But no one cares. Like, if you're an artist, you don't care, because you weren't doing it for them in the first place. So it is an awesome place to be, being an artist, because you're not really responsible to anybody but yourself, you know. And even if that artwork sucks that you're working on, who cares? Because there's another one to come.
Yeah.
So it's really different. It's a different field and a different different lifestyle.
Yeah.
And there's so many mediums out there to play with, you know, more and more, if anything. You know, like some of my artist friends are in videography or CG or whatever, and some of the stuff they produce it's radical. You know, it is you know, when you can combine painting with audio and visuals and movement, and fuck, it's just, you know, even with filmmaking, like if you sit there and someone's cried because they've watched a piece of yours or a film of yours, that's pretty successful.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
it's pretty emotive. So yeah, I think it's often criticized, often misunderstood, but the bottom line being, if you're an artist, you just are one. Like, you just can't not be one, you know. And it's interesting. I think it's almost like every creative's for me, like for so many years, I've thought that if you're a creative person or an artist, you only have one rule, like one thing that you have to remember, and that is you're on the planet to inspire others. That's your very reason for living. The only reason why you do what you do is so that you can inspire others. And for me, for a long time, that was enough.
Yeah.
Just to hold on to that.
I think that's like super interesting way to think about it. And this is my take on being an artist and artistry, right? I always see, when I define art and being an artist, and it's just being able to, you know, articulate what you feel in your heart, right? In a different way, using particular mediums to express that. And it's very pure, it's very truthful, you know, it's very raw. It is the essence of you. And it's not, you know, bound by, you know, definitional words or anything like that. It can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, right? So in that regard, my feeling is that anyone is innately an artist.
Yeah.
You know, everyone wants to express, but it's either whether you are able to embrace that or see past whatever it is that we've been indoctrinated or conditioned to think outside of that.
Insecurities,
right,
that will stop you from doing that.
Yeah, because how I see it, right? Creative expression and art and producing art is a very connected way of living, right? You are connected with your emotions, your feelings, and it comes through and it evolves as you evolve as a person. But on the other side of the spectrum, everything that is surrounding us in society and civilization, that is highly on the other side of the extreme, in that it's very intellectualized, you know? So it doesn't allow for those emotions, which really, they don't really fit into a world of definition or dictionaries or anything like that.
Well, yeah, there's like, if you don't understand art, it's very easy to just go, oh, arty farty, or you know, arty farty crap, or you know, or artists are just these emotional wrecks or whatever. Well, yeah, most of them are. You know, most of them are people who need the really low lows in order to create that next amazing piece. To be charged up like that, you know, in order to express something big. If you're really happy, then you probably are an artist that just paints the beach and it's just happy, you know, like you just paint the birds or whatever. But you know, there's some dynamic art out there which speaks to me, because I can understand what that person might have been trying to express. So I would say it's similar to those guys that are reading a shit ton of books, but you know, every now and then you go to a gallery and you'll find an artist that really speaks to you, and you're still reading. It's just reading in a completely visual way.
That's right.
And what's nice about reading an artwork versus reading a book is it's much more down to the reader's interpretation, whereas the book is a little bit more like it dictates to you facts.
That's right.
And it's written in one way, and it's not a two-way conversation. Whereas I feel like art, especially when you drag a random person, a random friend along that you haven't seen in a long time, drag them to the art gallery and have a catch up over checking out artwork. It's one of my favorite things to do. You know, it's like, it really opens up conversations, because you don't have to sit there and we're not going to talk about COVID. We're going to go and check out this artwork and see what comes out of our mouths. We have no idea. It's not scripted.
Yeah.
So,
And let me tell you, like you mentioned something, and it's a great point in terms of interpretation, right? I think that interpretation is everything that art is about, in terms of one perspective to another, and just living through a unique lens of interpretation and being able to do that, right? And like the reason why I bring that up is because I reflect back on certain conversations I have with people, and I'm very conscious about the words that I use, and people will pick them apart and say, why didn't you just say what you just said this way? It's quicker, you get to the point quicker. But to me, the way I use my words articulates the point as best as possible to describe my feelings, not to just get to a point.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So even the use of language and conversation, you know, is an expressive
it's a style
outlet.
too. It's like, you know, style is not a nasty word. Like when you think of that word, you might think of, jump to like, oh, trends and stuff like that. And trend is a bad word, because, you know, trend is something that, you know, everyone jumps on the bandwagon and then copies, and then it's not timeless. It's forgotten at some point. But style is really important. And I think style comes from experience, right? So the more you do something, the more you discover a style, a way of doing things and expressing yourself in a way that's not inspired by somebody else. So, and on that whole, like someone suggesting to you that, you know, you should have said this instead or whatever. Like I get that a lot too, right? You should have done this, or you should have done that. And my whole philosophy on that is, I will never listen to someone if they say the word should. Like as soon as the word should appears, I instantly cut it and just don't listen to whatever comes after it. But if they replace the word should with could, I'm all ears, because that's open-ended.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have done this, or no, you should have done this. It's really different to me.
Absolutely.
So when I hear the word should, like I'm always like, well, who are you to tell me what I should do? Yep. But if someone says you could do something, I'm like, okay, I'll listen. You know, I'm open.
I mean, it's the difference between, you know, a dictation of a direction versus, I guess, a sharing of interpretation.
Totally.
You know, that's the difference.
And being misunderstood's something that is like, if you're playing it safe, then you'll probably never be misunderstood.
Yeah.
You know, if you're playing
Correct.
the game like everybody else is, then you're not putting anything out there, so you'll never be misunderstood. But if you start to express shit in public being a lot more now with social media and stuff, right? Like in the 80s, public was like, you had to go down to the park and scream something or something, and only 5 people would hear you, right? Whereas now it's like, as soon as you say something, like there's thousands of people.
Yeah.
So, you know, just different. It's just really different. Expressing yourself and owning it, and being able to have people misunderstand you, but then to be okay with it. It's more like genuine confidence, which is really not easy to achieve. You know, I think a whole lot of younger people are really like chest up and really like a lot of that is ego and attitude. But then at some point in your life, that attitude becomes genuine confidence. Yeah. And that's kind of where we all really want to be. Yeah. It's like, you don't want to be like screaming without, like, it's all fake and it's not real. And, you know, you don't want to be trolling. You don't want to be saying shit for no good reason just to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
Like, I think at some point in life, the attitude subsides, the ego evolves, and you start to actually be really good at something. Like, you get that from, and that's how you get your real confidence, genuine confidence, which is really important.
Yeah, totally. I read a book recently, and it's called Courting the Wild Twin by Dr. Martin Shaw. And how he describes it is a youthful or a childish swagger, you know, because the swagger is pure of a child.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Like, it's not evil.
Yes.
It's understandable.
Correct.
Yeah.
But Shaun, I think I want to throw to you for a sec, man, because I know that you have talked about recently a lot about not giving a fuck about what people think, and this is key, I guess, topic for genuine expression and being able to say what you want to say, how you want to say it, and be unapologetic about it. I want to talk to you about that a little bit, Shaun, and get your thoughts on, you know, that journey for yourself, and, you know.
Yeah, man. I guess like with what you guys were just discussing as well, I think the reason people put anything out is to get a response, like at the core of it. Otherwise, you just keep it to yourself, right? Like no one would ever post anything on their social media. I don't think artists wouldn't display their work. Is you want a response, and whatever that response may be, you know. And we all do that. So, but how you take that response is key in how you're going to move forward through life and the experience you're going to have, right? Because like moments don't really matter until you attach a meaning to them, right? And then they become an experience, and then you use that experience to navigate through life. Like if you put out a piece of art or you put out a piece of writing, right? Because I do like short form writing. So you put out a piece of writing and then people hate it. The response is not something that you liked. It might affect how you do it later on. You know, you might go, oh, I'm not going to put that out. And then you stop sharing things that you wish you'd shared. And I think there's a few things that you need to be mindful about, is that how someone interprets something is their own interpretation, right? Everybody's got their own viewpoints and their own context for when they look at something. They could be going through something in a certain way and they blow up at you about it.
But you also have to think, like, who is that person that's writing that negative comment? Who are you?
Exactly. And then I think like it's interesting, right? Because you put something out to get a response, and then you get that response, and it's like, is that person's response something that should matter to you? And I think that's interesting. Like, what are you trying to get out of putting that out, right? And you need to be thinking about that. Like, do you think it's something that's going to evoke an emotion in someone that you want to invoke? Are you doing it for your own ego? Do you want to be seen a certain way? And that's really interesting. And then as well with that, there's people's expectations of you.
Yeah.
Right. And that also dictates what you put out. Yeah. And I heard this recently, and I'm like, fuck, that's a good way to be and live. And since I've been doing this, it's changed things for me a lot. Is you can't put your expectation of me on me.
Guilt.
Yeah, guilt, and also whatever you think I should be doing, that's what you think I should be doing, man.
Yeah.
How about what I want to do?
Could be doing.
Yeah, or could be doing. And that's the thing. And that's one thing that I've always found really interesting, which is, you know, when people say you should do this and you should do that, it's like, who's like, based on whose opinion? Just yours, right? And or that if you should do something that's because it's gonna impact them in a way that they want to be impacted, or they want a result that they want. So they're like, you should do this way, right? They're putting their desires on you. Well, what about your desires? What about what you want? Is that not important? And that's what I think about a lot of the times now, when people are like, you should do this, you should do that. completely different, as you said, to you could do this and you could do that. There's a big difference between suggestion and direction.
Yeah.
Right.
And it really depends who it's coming from. Like,
yeah,
I've been watching a whole lot of Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares on YouTube. These past episodes,
Yeah.
it's a fucking funny show. And like, he goes in there, and all these chefs have the hugest egos, saying that they give their food 10 out of 10, but not one single ingredient's fresh. Everything's frozen or pre-made.
Yeah.
And it's like, he smashes their egos.
Yeah.
But it takes someone a lot to get to that point where, okay, I'm going to value this person because he is running a successful business. He's running a TV show, and like, maybe I will listen to him. But even just to get to that point, it does take a lot for someone to give up everything that they thought was great, or their fanboys and fangirls that are saying, you're an awesome singer, go on Idol. And then on Idol, the judges say, oh my God, you can't sing. You know, it's like, you got to readjust who you listen to.
Yeah.
Or like the person who's addicted to drugs, and like the psychologist will say, well, you've got to leave all your friends that smoke. It's a horrible thing. It's so daunting to get real, especially when you've got this cushion around you of comfort and praise and bullshit.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I think being open to change is one of the hardest things you can do, because you spent so many years to get to the point that you're at now. And then for someone to come along and destroy everything for you in order for you to see something in a different way and potentially be better.
Yeah.
How many times can that happen? Like, it's a scary thought. It's like, yes, when you do take on some feedback that changes you for the better, and you feel like you're on the right path, and then somebody else comes along that's an even bigger fish and goes, you still suck, you're still crap. So then you break yourself again, and it's like a muscle, right? You break it, it keeps getting bigger. But how big do you want to get?
Yeah. And I think
it's also a good question, you know?
Yeah, an important part about that is essentially credibility, right? And I feel like that's what you're getting at, which is the credibility of who you're listening to is key.
Yeah.
You know, if someone walked in from their kitchen who's only ever made instant noodles and, you know, bakes things in their oven like chips and sauce, and then walks into your restaurant, it's like, your food is fucking shit. I'd be like, don't really think I'm going to be listening to your opinion on my culinary.
You're not going to lose sleep over it.
Yeah, correct. But if Gordon Ramsay or, you know, another well-known chef who clearly has had success in the culinary arena comes in and is like, I don't think that's what you think it is.
Yeah.
There's a very different prospect of who you're going to be listening to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
how
that's
you
what
take
it comes
the
down
message.
to. It's like, it's not like, you know, there was that book with the orange cover, which was like attention grabbing. It was like, it's something to do with how to not give a fuck, or I don't give a fuck.
Subtle art of not giving a fuck.
The subtle art of not giving a fuck, right? And a whole lot of people on my social medias were like, Justin, you should read this book. And like, I picked it up at the bookshop, and I read the back cover, and I'm like, man, this sounds like something that I would write anyway. You know, and I think whatever's in it, I probably already practice.
Yeah.
But I hope that a whole lot of people aren't reading it and taking it in the wrong way and not giving a fuck about what some people are saying that could be of value.
Yeah.
You know, I think like,
point, man.
Right. Because I think it would really hurt me to, you know, as an artist, to meet another artist who was way more successful and then put me down and for me to listen to it, because I know it would hurt, because being hurt is what it takes sometimes to progress. But I hope there's not too much more of that to come in my life, because I feel like I've done that, broken myself multiple times.
Yes.
But it's like, you don't want to have to keep being in that position of someone
tearing you down
along and influencing you. So that's what I mean. Like, if you're an artist and your work is shit, well, you know, you can't all be good. Like, there's a certain acceptance that I have as I get older of like, well, they're doing that thing. That's their style. They're happy with it. I could go in and suggest a few things that could maybe make their work more sellable or something.
Yeah.
But who am I? Like, I question myself. Why would I want to throw a fucking spanner in this person's life?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have to.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You know, there's also being, I guess, helpful and productive, and just ragging on people to rag on them.
Right. If they're asking for it, then okay. If they're asking for feedback, you know, sometimes I'll post up some process work of my graphic design or whatever, and people go, your logo C looks like a dick or something. I'm like, hey, I'm just posting this up to share as something that you guys never see, which is process. You guys always just see the end finished polished thing. And I'm just like, sharing is caring. So I'm putting it up so that you guys can see all the shit before it gets good.
Yeah.
But I didn't at any point ask for any feedback on this.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're giving it, then I'm just gonna, I didn't ask for it.
That's something, man, which you learn too. And actually learned this from Les, which is help is a request.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
you don't give it because someone doesn't need it.
Right? Yeah, man. And it's very different. And how that's going to be received by people is going to be so different too. And that's where you have the should and could that comes into play too. Yeah. You know, a lot of times when people give you like quote unquote like advice on something, it's like, man, I didn't fucking ask for it.
But advice is scary to give anyway, right? Like it takes a lot to ask for advice.
Yeah.
But even scarier when people just give it, you know?
Yeah. And I guess the thing that I think about with that is how it's going to be received in that moment, right? Because if you just spew your opinion at someone and you think that's advice, they might just take that as an attack and nothing good is going to come out of that. Whereas if they've requested your help or they've requested feedback from you, they're open, right? And they might actually do something with it. So I think, you know, it's important to have that distinction with people. Like, if you're someone who thinks you're helping someone, right? Like, are you actually helping them? And have they requested that type of help from you? Because that's going to dictate if they're open to it or not, you know? And going back to like not giving a fuck, for me, it's not so much about like just putting your middle fingers up to the world and being like, I don't give a fuck about what you think. I still care a lot about what a lot of people think, but it's like not giving a fuck about doing what everybody else wants me to do, right? And it's more about not giving a fuck is more about putting what you care about above what other people care about more than anything.
Yeah, look, I think, you know, I don't know if getting old, you get jaded or something like that, but it's like, for me, it's like I used to give so many more fucks though. Like I used to care so much more about stuff.
Me too.
You know, I think now with this, you know, Leslie brought the word society up, and I really try not to use it, but in the current society where all you know is this comments coming back from someone with the username 12345, and I have no fucking idea who that person is, and I'm not about to click on that name and stalk them to find out what their credentials are either. But it's just like, man, it's like I've always been interested in creating communities of like-minded people. And the way I look at society right now, it is a cesspool of all types of people, all ages, you know, and all different levels of intelligence and taste, you know. It's all subjective. And it's like, I can no longer be fucked with trying to create a message and then having to somehow explain myself over and over again to the random person that comes of age and comes along to the project that I've been running for a few years.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, there's always going to be some kid on school break that's going to discover your project and then ask a whole bunch of crazy questions. And, you know, if you run a forum, next thing you know, this kid's on it 24 hours because he has no life and is like filling up every room with a shit ton of stupidity. And it's just going to scare away all the people that you really love, that you've nurtured for all these years on the forum, because they're all like, oh, you know, I don't think I can be on this forum anymore because these kids are taking over and there's just too much shit going on in there. It's a really political thing, but it's kind of like, that's society today. It's like, it's not like-minded, small little group of people, or like you meet up with like 10 guys with hot cars and we all meet up at Krispy Kremes and have some donuts. Now it's like 2,000 cars, and I don't know anybody here. You know, they don't even know who's running it, and then they go out and do burnouts on the way out. The police come, and then they're forgetting the reason why we started this whole thing in the first place.
Yeah, that's
So,
interesting.
yeah, well, that's society to me now. So that's what I mean by I can't give many fucks anymore, because I mean, with Zen Garage, our byline, our tagline is "It's okay if you don't get it," and a lot of people look at that tagline as a whole bunch of attitude, and that we're like, It's not. I'm just genuinely suggesting that we fucking get obsessed with this cool shit, and if you don't get why we do, then it's all right. Like, it's okay if you don't understand. Don't bag us out because we're geeking out about something we love. Like, don't feel like you're not a cool kid because you don't understand it. It's all right. It's totally all right if you don't understand what I'm obsessed about. So it's okay if you don't get it. And that was the beginning of not giving a fuck for me.
Okay.
You know, creating a brand that it's kind of like, you know, it's called Zen, and then you've got these white dudes wearing the logo ZEN as big as their fucking backs. And like, you know, if you didn't know what was going on, you'd be like, why are these white dudes at the fuel station with hot Japanese cars wearing Zen? Like, what's this all about? You know? But it's like, it's all right if you don't get it. It's easier to say that than to be like, what's this all about? I'm like, it's all right. It's okay if you don't get it. You know?
It's interesting, man, when you make that point about society. Now I think about it, it's like there's a whole bunch of people just weighing in on shit. When, to be frank, man, you don't really have a place to be weighing in on that shit. And why are you there trying to weigh in on it anyway?
But because society is feeding itself, because every single YouTuber says, smash that like button and please leave your comments below, because they know the comments generate more money. And that's why. It's because the current culture is like, the more comments, the better, even if they're negative. Yeah. And it's like, that's not what creating a community was about back in the day. It was about like, how many constructive comments can I get out of this post? Yeah. That's what was going to make it for me. Not how much shit talking and, you know, like shit stirring just for negative reactions or something. Yeah.
And that's one part I haven't understood still, man, to this day. Like people that jump on posts and things on social and talk shit. I'm like, nasty. What, like, bro, what are you doing? Just, it's taking your time to talk shit. And
well, they're probably at a weird stage in their life where their values are completely different to yours.
Yeah. And like, and they want a response too, man.
And that's what they value right now, because you're saying something you're saying something genuine and getting genuine responses. And jealousy leads to hate, right? So jealousy of you getting responses means that if they write something negative, I bet you I can get my troll brothers and sisters to like my troll comment, so that I'm also stealing some of that attention from stealing some limelight, right? So it's like, I think in, like Leslie's brought up the word society, so I'm going to use it, but it's like in society now, it's like any situation where you get some attention is good. Yeah. That's the current value. It's like, man, if I can get a troll post happening and everyone fucking likes my troll post, then I'm happy. I made that post. That was nasty and evil and wanky, but I'm getting attention for it, and that makes me feel good.
What I'll say about this, man, and it's super broad and super interesting topic, but I think that the way that I would distill it is if you look at the macro level and how generally the modern world and how we behave and act, it's sort of like a reflection of who we are as a people, as a collective people, right? But then if we go down into the micro level and we talk about these people who, you know, give unsolicited advice or they troll on posts and things like that, to me, if you don't have the level of awareness to understand what you're doing yourself, then you can't see what it is. You don't know what's controlling that sort of behavior for yourself. But to me, what that is really, every interaction that you do or every action that you make is a mirror for yourself, you know, to see where you are at this point in time as a person. You know, everything that you do, everything that you put out in the world, whether it's good, bad, expression of art, or some shitty comment, that's a reflection of where you are at this point in time. And if you are not aware enough to see that and understand what that means and what picture that paints of yourself, then obviously you're just going to be that automaton conditioned by whatever it is whatever environment that you were growing up in, and continue down that route. Because like you guys said, like this society now feeds on that sort of attention and media. And that's why social media is massive, right?
Yeah, when it's massive, it's full of shit. But when it's small, it's the best. It's like when infancy of a new project, infancy of a community, the birth of something is just so pure. And it's usually built around a few key players who are more than willing to contribute because they've found like-minded people. And that's the way a community should be. But when you've got the pressure of like having to monetize a video or a channel, or when you've got this, the more likes I have, the more substantial I am, or it's all confused, right? Because you can buy likes now. You can, I met a guy recently who went on eBay and bought someone's gaming account so he didn't have to do all the grinding to get to the end level. He bought somebody else's hard work. I'm like, holy shit, you serious? It's just like, it's crazy what's out there now, you just can't help it. It's like all these girls editing their faces on Instagram with Face App and stuff like that. It's like, I'm a photographer, and I spent a whole lot of my years editing photos, right? Photo re-editor. So I can see it straight away. Like from a distance, I can see, holy shit, that's being edited to fuck. But like to feel like you have to do that, and that is your expression of yourself, is freaky. And chances are, the saddest thing about it is you get these people who are faking it on your level. Get them over, order some Uber Eats, a glass of wine, and they're fucking awesome people. Without all that crap.
Yeah.
Take it all away and just have a real conversation about life. And a lot of people, I click with so many people of different ages that are completely different on social media to the people that were hanging out with me for the last couple of hours.
Yeah, man. And it's interesting to figure out why they feel they need to put themselves out in a certain type of way.
Right.
Like,
It's fascinating.
I think like one of the subset on social that you see for sure is like super hot girls that like overly, well, I'm not going to say overly sexualized because like that's subjective, but like get their tits out and their ass out because they want a response, right? And whatever that response is. And I'm like, what response are you actually trying to get? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it depends what's the good in it,
Yeah.
And I'm friends with a lot of those girls who will have like maybe 50 to 100 comments on one photo, on every photo, and they will reply to every single one of them. I'm like, they're not giving you money. Like they're liking you and thinking indecent things about you in this photo.
Yeah.
And you're responding to all of them, and that's money, because time is money and that's effort and stuff. So I'm like, but you're not making $1 from this.
Yeah.
This is Instagram.
That's the thing, man. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Because then, like a friend of mine as well, she's, got a pretty successful Instagram account now. And she is actually a stripper though. She's a dancer, right? And she's got like a lot of evocative photos on her Instagram, but it's because she promotes herself and her OnlyFans, and that's how she makes money, right?
See, now
so I'm like, I get that.
Yes.
I get that.
Yes,
but when you're not, when you're just like a girl who lives at home with her parents and
Yep.
you bedroom taking like 30,000 photos of yourself, just trying to get like your top down just so that the nipple doesn't show, and you're putting that out, and it's just to do that. I'm wondering like, what the fuck's going on, man?
Well, it's different stages in life, and it's also something that we didn't have when we were young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we every day after school, I'd hop on my skateboard and hang out with the kids down the road who are into skating too, and that's all we had. We had 5 people that you could possibly influence.
Yeah.
But now you could influence thousands, and even at a young age, you can reach out to more people than you really should be able to. That's the problem. You know, you take it back to the 80s or 90s, and you could only influence a handful of people. And to give everyone with an internet connection so much power to influence more than a handful of people so easily. It's, how do you even start to traverse this?
Yeah. It's very
It's
interesting.
crazy. It's crazier than you think.
Because I also think about that in terms of times and places for things, right? And you know, there is a time and place for certain things, but the nature of the internet and social media just gives everyone access to everything immediately. You know what I mean? And I think
How
about
stupid are people, even though they have the access, right?
yeah, and that's the thing. But then I think about some people that just stumble upon things, right? And it might not be the right time and place for you to stumble upon that.
Yeah.
And you can't control that. So I think you also need to be mindful about that. Not that you need to be thinking about what you put out of who could see it, and then you let that dictate as well, because that's like another thing to balance out, right? Because then you're pandering, and you know, there might be things that you want to put out that you don't, because someone might see it that's actually not going to fucking see it. And then like, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line?
You can't. I don't think there are any lines. That's the thing. You know, the amount of people that I know that they've gone and found their little brother's iPad and gone through the history of it and been freaked out.
Bro, that's what I was thinking about.
Checking out.
Yeah, I'm like, man, so I've got family members who are super young, right? Like my partner's cousins, the kids, man. They've got Instagrams, and they can actually go straight to fucking all these, you know, like the little boys, bro. They can go to these chicks that are just getting their kid out. And I'm like, they think that's normal. And then they expect like girls around them to be like that, and they're not. And they're like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Right? And those girls get treated a certain way that they probably shouldn't be treated. Or like you write something that's at a very mature level, right? That requires some type of, you know, consciousness or intellect to grasp. And this little kid reads it, right? And it might not be the message that they should be hearing at this point in time in their life.
But it's funny, like when you look at it that way, right? It's almost like you can't hate on it because it is what it is. Like society, like it's easy to say, oh my God, everything's gone, shit's hit the fan now, everything's crazy. But it's funny that it probably would have been the same in the 80s or the 70s or the 20s if you brought the internet in then.
Yeah.
It still would have been the same. So it's kind of like, in some ways, the internet and this connectivity that we've had with other human beings on the other side of the planet, this closeness and the shrinking of the world is in some ways a more accurate reflection. Leslie, you love to talk about mirrors and self-reflection. Well, then the internet's done nothing but actually just open ourselves up even more to seeing what we're really like.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like it's not a negative thing. It's like it's fucked up, but like, yeah, humans are fucked up. And for so many years, probably humans have thought that we weren't fucked up, that we are the superior fucking being or race. But in reality, you know, even with all of this environmental shit going on, it's like it's an awakening of like, holy fuck, we're fucked.
Absolutely.
We are destroying the planet and shit. So it's like, it's a strong society. Like the internet and stuff is just, if anything, showing ourselves what we're really like.
Yeah. There's that, what's that? I totally agree, man. It's a very interesting topic. I can't remember who put it out. They made an AI, right? And it was a Twitter account that just interacted with people and then would respond. and within 24 hours it turned into like this super racist Nazi killbot who just kept spewing racist
And
comments
it's not the
and
application.
attacking people, right? But the interesting thing about that is that the AI was based on its interaction with other accounts, right? And it had gone from this clean slate 24 hours earlier to interacting with people on the internet and becoming what most people would class as this like wildly inappropriate, crazy, super character. But that's what it just reflected what it interacted with, right? So I think it's a good point. Is like, man, it's a reflection, and it's like the internet is a lot like money, like that, right? And so many people that talk shit on money, and they're like, money turns people, it makes them evil, it makes them greedy and shit. And it doesn't, man. It's just like, it's just a microphone for who you are. Like, if you're a prick and you become rich, you're going to be a prick with that money.
Yeah.
If you're a good person and you become rich, you'll probably do a lot of good things with that money.
Yeah, true.
And I feel like the internet does that as well. It's just like this microphone that just
too many
amplifies fucking everything, right?
Totally. It fully is. Like, if you think about it this way, and I completely agree with that, the mirror analogy is powerful, but it's only powerful enough to evoke change if you see it, right? If you see the reflection, regardless of whether you're yourself or the society, like everyone knows it. Everyone can recognize that that humanity is not as like spick and span and clean as we once thought we were, right?
No.
We're not. We're just not. It's just not true. But what are we doing about it? We're just proliferating this shit. You know what I mean? We're just making it worse and worse, but we're building on it because it makes us feel good momentarily. And we're just going to continue to make it faster and better and more shiny.
It's because we don't understand why we exist. That's all.
Well,
like, that's getting really deep, but it's like, end of the day, it's like, you don't really have a reason, like I saw that video of like 3 overweight ladies fighting over toilet paper.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's so fucking important about your life that you need to have that much toilet paper, that you need to survive? Like, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's just gone nuts. Like, everyone's sense of self-value is so high, but there's needs to be a whole lot of humbling going on if we all are going to get along a bit better. But it's not really the way it's happening. And like, we're only talking about it like we're over the internet now, and we're all living in cities and stuff. But like I said, like my trip to Africa last year was just, it was mind blowing. It's like, the world is small, yeah, but Africa's not on the internet. Those guys aren't on the internet. They don't have electricity in some of those places that I visited. So, that's life as well.
Totally. And like, the way I see it really, man, is like all the stuff that we've been talking about, it's just noise, right? It's external noise. And this is like, it's the point is that it comes from an external source. Regardless of whether we're talking about in the 20s to now, right? There was always external noise. There was always a voice coming from outside trying to influence us people as an individual or as a collective in one way or another. Now with the internet, it's just a fucking million voices proliferated in like a million different directions. So it's like even more confusing than ever, right? So going back, and it's always noise from the outside. But for me, what has always been the most powerful thing is that you have to shut that shit off. You have to turn down that noise that's from the outside and turn up the volume of the voice inside, right?
It's hard to do that when you're living in a city.
Absolutely.
And connected. If you're
totally is. And like, I'm definitely not downplaying the fact that it's a difficult thing, because this is something that I've tried to do and I will continue to do. Like, I've been doing it for 8+ years now, and I want to continue to do it. And I still think that I'm shit at it. But in comparison to most people who haven't tried or who have been conditioned in the city and completely embedded and it's all they know, it's a very, very difficult thing. But to me, it comes back to not looking outside for any solution. But the solution is always to take responsibility for your own shit.
Yeah.
It always starts
you're good
there.
at that. You're good at looking inside. And I think a lot of people don't do that because they're scared of what inside could be insignificant or ugly or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's funny, like your way of canceling out the noise, which is, that's something that you do with Finding Space, right? Is always inspire people to, your graphics are minimalist and it's always less is more kind of thing, right? But then it's like people who live in the city, it's always a Band-Aid solution. That's always going to be the easiest solution. So to buy some like super expensive high-tech noise canceling headphones would be the cooler thing to buy than to take a weekend and go and stay on a farm somewhere where it's so fucking silent out there, you'll hear tinnier in your ears. Like you can have the same experience for the same amount of money, but the noise canceling headphones are the thing.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be like that. It's like all those sci-fi films aren't too far off, I reckon, like buying another memory, buying someone else's memory, or downloading Kung Fu into your head or whatever. It's like once they figure all of that out, there's definitely going to be people that are willing to eat the fake steak if it tastes as good as than eating a real cow or something. I don't know. It's going to happen. It's already happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, look, that comes back to like full circle to a matter of balance in my mind, right? Balance of these two aspects. And it's never to be extreme about one thing or another in terms of, having to go out and live in the mountain ranges in solitude and silence.
Like proper disconnection.
Yeah. But like seeing what it is that the environment is around us in modern world today, the environment is what it is, right? And we understand that. And for us to need to live here, we have to understand that and adapt ourselves to be able to cope with it, And that's my that's the way of balancing that. If you need to take yourself out to as I went off and stayed in a Zen Buddhist monastery in Japan.
Yeah.
And that for me was transformational because, again, to remove yourself from the hustle and bustle and mania of the city life into like the middle of a fishing village on the top of a mountain, it's fucking chalk and cheese. It's so different,
It's amazing. Yeah.
That amount of space that you get and the level of noise or lack of noise, it's incredible. And this is what you don't necessarily need to do that physically. You can cultivate that skill for yourself, right? And to be able to traverse this landscape, this very like complex society that we live in now, very complex, very convoluted, and it's very difficult to know what's right and wrong.
Well, if you're 20 years old, it would be.
So 100%.
If you're 18, it would be, 18, you guys remember what it was like at 18 years old. It was hard enough as it was without the internet.
That's right.
Right? Like imagine being 18 now.
I think about that too, bro. Imagine being fucking 12 now. Like,
right.
Grade with a smartphone and like this crazy shit that happens because there are some experiences that some people have that just define them, right? And
right. And usually when you're young too, right?
Yeah. And I think there's shit that happened like in my high school, for example.
Yeah.
Really embarrassing shit that happened to people, but everyone's forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Right?
And not on the internet.
Yeah, it's because, man, like the epitome of technology at the time was a fucking Nokia brick 3310.
Yeah.
And the most anyone could do, you wouldn't even fucking text each other about it because it costs you 20 cents a text. And when you fucking expensive. But like, man, could you imagine now if something happened at school and like it gets recorded and then shared everywhere?
That happens.
That happens. Exists forever, man.
I know.
It's nuts. So I think about that too, dude. Like about how like this technology and connectivity is actually impacting people in that way. It's like there are some parts about your past, man, that you want to forget, and it's good to forget.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone.
No one remembers but you, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe a couple of people, but they've forgotten unless you reminded them, right?
Yeah, and even some stuff you forget about yourself, right? Yeah. Because it was who you were at that time.
Yeah.
And you acted out of whatever you acted out of. right? And yeah, it was shit at the time, but like you've grown since then. And
So can you blame the kids today for being trolls and shit? You can't. That's what I'm saying. Like
yeah,
you can't blame them for not taking a risk and writing a big thing about how they feel, or making a song that they feel like they need to get out there and they're too scared to release it, or a whole lot of people will buy all the recording equipment and the guitars and everything, but they're not going to release anything. Why? Why aren't you releasing? Show me, listen, let me listen to some music. No, it's not finished yet. It's not perfect yet. It's because they don't have the confidence to understand that this is as good as it can be right now. And sure, if I write a song 2 years from now, it'll be even better. But this is going to be the past then.
Yeah.
So people have this fear, right? Like huge fear of, it's just easier if I just shut up. It's easier if I look the part. I've got it all on Instagram, all the gear, and I'm hashtagging the brand Ibanez, and I'm hashtagging, all this stuff. But like, there's nothing on the SoundCloud, or there's no tracks because it's like they don't want the criticism. They don't want people to mark this as this is what they do, because they know they're capable of more. But you only get better when you release stuff, right?
Yeah, totally.
You got to take that risk, yeah? You got to fuck, your first album is going to be shit. But, there's more to come.
Yeah.
So, but you can't blame them, though. You can't blame them for not wanting to release something if there's so much shit talking crap out there and stuff, and so many harsh critics where you didn't even ask for it. And I think it used to be a lot more nurturing than that. Like you'd send your 6-track demo tape on cassette tape to the magazine, and then they'd go, oh, there's always young kids out there that are going to change the face of the world one day, have a listen to this. And it was much nicer then. Whereas now it's like, fuck, man, you got to get good. Like this is amateur shit or whatever.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, though, I think there's also some the internet's brought about, and the way things are has brought about some cool shit. Like there are people that do have the courage to put things out, right? And you see the progression over time, and you're like, oh, that could be me too, right?
Well, right. There's always going to be extraordinary people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always going to be, right?
Yeah. It's like the amount they share that.
Yeah.
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 But I think it's also like what we were saying before, right? In terms of experience, and we've each walked very interesting paths in our own lives and learned a whole bunch of shit to come to where we are, and so has a lot of other people. And it's almost like for us, it's it becomes like some sort of a responsibility for the older generation who have experienced life to some degree, and to leverage the tools that we have available to us to encourage and empower in a positive way, to break people out of this square box that they've been, squeezed into, and to let them know that it is okay. And you see that a lot as well on the internet. There is equally as much good shit on the internet as there is bad stuff, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. I think, like, personally, I think I used to care more for that. And I think I used to really strive to try to break people. Sometimes you need to be that blunt, and I wouldn't call it honesty. I would say that I would get to a point where I was so blunt with people that it would force them to open up. So it's almost like a trick, Like I was so confident that I can get this person to have a deeper conversation than just a hi, bye, let's talk about the weather and shit. So it was like, I would call that almost manipulative. But I don't think I bother so much with that now. I'm just like, well, this is who I am. And it's still a reflection. It's still a mirror. Like, I don't want people coming over for a photo shoot or a hangout or whatever, and then walking away going, whoa, fuck, that was intense or nothing. No, I don't want that. I want good vibes, but I don't think I'm so busy to use the medium of the internet to further influence more people. Like what you're doing now is awesome if we were all in the same room together and we didn't record it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's kind of the direction I'm going in, which is like, I tried the podcast thing too, but it's like, we said some really fucking personal shit and it's out there now on the internet, it's floating around, and someone can comment about it like 3 or 4 years later, but I'm like, fuck, that was 3 or 4 years ago, bro. That's my past already, you know? So it's like, part of me is like just the interactions that I have with people that I meet, that I work with, that's keeping me going at the moment. It's like, it's a little way of making myself feel secure in myself, and that I'm okay, because when they have a great time and say nice things to my face about hanging out, then it's kind of like, well, all right, checkbox ticked. I'm doing all right. I'm not freaking people out and like making them want to run, you know? So that kind of smaller but more meaningful interactions, that, you know, I wasn't sitting there afterwards going, fuck, I wish I had a recorder so I could put this up on the podcast. That is more where I'm going. Yep. I feel it's not so much, and it's like, it's got a lot to do with what we were just been talking about for the last, you know, half an hour. This whole, what's the point of me sharing this if, like, yeah, it is nice to reach 5 people, but in the olden ways, reaching 5 people was way more, felt better than reaching 5 people now and reaching 50 other people that really don't get it but feel the need to comment. You know? So I think, like, yeah, part of me is like, it feels like giving up is could be something that, you know, someone would comment, oh, well, sounds like you're just giving up. I wouldn't call it that. I would just say readjusting my values to what matters more, that it just happened and then it's going to be a figment of my imagination, or that at least every time I think about that person, I'm like, oh, fuck, last time we hung out was fucking awesome. I would love to hang out again. So that is an easier game to play for me than, you know, Shaun, like you said, about keeping up this thing and people expecting you to do this thing, you know. So I think where I've been in the past was much more public. And now it's kind of like, well, there is that still every now and then, me ranting and saying whatever's on my shoulders. But that's more for me to just get shit out. But whether I care about the fact that I ranted on Facebook and I got some really good comments on that post that I made last week, but next week it's gone. I can't even find that post anymore. 2 years from now, I'll never find it. It's gone forever. And the old me would be like, fuck, I've got to save the best comments and put it into a blog post, so that, because some of this stuff is really juicy. Some of the stuff that people are saying is beautiful. But then, fuck it. It was a moment in time, you know? So I think that's kind of where I'm going right now. It's kind of like, just readjusting values as usual. And my values are getting more and more old school the older I get. And they're just getting to a point where, the smaller interactions mean more than like actually seeing someone and hanging out with someone for 2 hours means so much more than writing a hit post that goes viral. You know?
I love that, man. And I think that eventually that is where everyone will turn up, you know, in some shape or form.
I think so, man. You can't, the internet's not something you can hug, you know? The internet's not something, it's not real, you know? You don't go to bed with it. It's like, if anything, you go to bed with the frustration of that one fucking negative comment. It was always like that running communities. Like, you have some guy in the car forum posting up his car, and then you have like 2 whole pages of people praising it. Love it, bro. I love this. I love that. And then one negative comment goes, you fucking tosser, you're copying this guy. You've got the exact same wheels as this guy. And he starts linking all these people. And then I get a message from the person saying, oh, Justin, can you take my post down? because I've got like haters on it. I'm like, bro, you've got 2 pages of positive comments. You got 1 negative comment. But yeah, they're losing sleep over that 1 negative comment.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the way life is now. It's
Totally.
like, who cares if 30 or 40 people say that you're awesome? When that one person says something negative, people will lose sleep about it.
Yeah. And like you said, it's not real. And this is the thing, right? The world that we live in right now is we detach ourselves from what is actually like physically real in front of us, what is tactile, you know, what is actual reality, you know, shaking of a hand, hugging someone, having a real conversation face to face.
Especially now, right?
Yeah.
The hugging and shaking hands.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everything we take that for granted, but what is happening is we're just so detached from everything that we're living in these worlds that are built up in our minds, you know.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's a conception in the mind, and we've lost touch with everything that's like so tangible and so beautiful in front of us, because we're rushing through life all the time and just running past everything, because we've got to get to the next thing to make our egos grow or pump that up in our heads, you know.
Yeah, I think so, man. The whole virtual, like I said, the whole sci-fi films have been bang on, and this social distancing and not hugging people, not shaking hands, VR headsets. Like I know guys that do virtual reality car racing, and they're on it for like 12-hour races. You know, and like, come on, bro, you got screens on your eyes, and it's not real, but you're on it for 12 hours straight. Like, it's there already. It's happening. Like, there's like apps where you're dating someone, and there's a girlfriend in your room, and you're VR. Or there's like cooking apps, so you're fucking cooking a meal, and it's like you could be just like in your fucking kitchen doing this. You don't have to pay $100 to virtually cook something. You know, it's happening though. It's like we are not in charge of where people place their values.
Yeah.
So if someone was to place a shit ton of value into playing computer games for achievements, but you know, they don't value the fact that they can't show off these achievements anywhere in real life. They can't go down to the mall or to the park and show off this trophy, you know, or they can't put it in their bedroom. It's a fucking digital gold medal. You know, that's their prerogative. That's their life. So we are nobody to judge that. We're sort of nobody to say, oh, isn't it a shame that, you know, like we're just nobody to do that. So I think it's just more the acceptance of it is an easier pill to swallow and an easier place to be, you know, because we're all judgmental, right?
Yeah.
You just can't help it. But then like when you start to catch yourself out on judging things is when you start to realize, oh, fuck, I'm actually maturing or something. You know, I'm actually fucking figuring shit out.
Yeah.
That's when it starts to like, you know, when you start to, you know, not compare yourself to anybody, or when you start to not diss on anybody for doing something wrong. You know, like the whole right, wrong thing is like, man, heaps of shit that I do would be probably considered wrong, but it's like, fuck, you know, I'm only human.
It's right for you, man. That's what matters.
That's right.
Like, as long as you're not hurting other people, right and wrong are very, very subjective.
Right. It's like art. Going back to art, like if we bring it all the way back to art, like what's amazing about art is, yeah, it's exactly totally subjective, you know, like why, you know, why an artist can create an artwork and be a total bum and create something that's worth like $5 million, but it's only worth $5 million to that guy that wants to sell it on for 10. So it's like, it's really weird, right? It's like the art world. And, you know, if you're an artist and you're just dying to have a fucking show, and that's what a lot of young artists are like, oh, fuck, I can't wait to be in a show, get my art out of my bedroom and into a show. But then they have a show and, you know, it's like shitty wine, plastic cups, and the people around them, it's just their family and friends. And so they're just pissing in each other's pockets. But hey, fuck, I had a show, you know? So it's like I used to judge all of that shit. But now it's kind of like, you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, man. And it's like there's this weird dynamic as well, you know, that touches on what you were discussing of the doing things smaller and actually enjoying them and, being a part of them. I feel like right now I hear so many people online talk about, I want to impact 1 million people. I'm like, but why? Like, for what? How about you start by impacting 1 or 2 people around you? Like, and where did you get this million number from?
Right.
Like, and why is that important to you?
Yeah.
It's because it sounds big.
Yeah, and I think we're all being sold on like bigger is better still.
Yeah, no, totally. We lean into that shit.
I
We
think
lean
we're
into it.
intelligent enough to know that now.
Well, people still believe that they, like after that Facebook movie came out, I had all these fucking influx of messages from people that I haven't spoken to in ages. And they're like, Justin, let's, I want to catch up with you. I want to come up with an idea and stuff. I'm like, oh, fuck, you just watched that Facebook film, didn't you? Like, oh, yeah. And it's like, that's the thing. Like, people are still looking for that. That's, fucking make 1 million off a simple idea, or, be the Pepsi to the Coca-Cola even. Just copy someone who's going off and then catch the second wave. But it's just like, I don't know. It's all back down to values and shit. And who gives a fuck if you speak to 1 million people? Doesn't matter. Like, who are those people? That's what's more important to me.
Yeah.
So, like, I know that there's all this stuff going on, like American Idol and all these TV shows, reality TV and all this stuff like that. It's all part of the network for us now, It's all part of the landscape. So there's like booby traps everywhere.
Yeah.
Totally. Because it always comes down to, man, at the end of the day, it just comes down to, you take responsibility for what you have control of, and that's yourself, and that's it. You don't have control of anyone else.
Down to that. Like, taking responsibility is a good one. Definitely. Making sure that you're not fucking shit up for other people.
That's it.
That's a good start. But yeah, like what Shaun was talking about the expectations things too. That's a huge thing, because I think another thing that Shaun said was like, well, you put things out there so you get a response, right? That's one big part of it. But then when you put things out there and you get a good response, and then you change direction, and then people expected you to stay on the same direction, that's another big part of it.
Yeah.
So I'm totally with you on that, because it's like they're booby traps in themselves. Because A, you've decided to balls up and actually put something out there. And then B, now people start to like it or hate it, either way. But if they like it, then you're like, okay, they want more of that. Because people are more-ish, right? People want more. People want more,
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where then they expect it, and then make you feel bad for maybe missing a podcast or missing a show or whatever, an album. And then, like, what the fuck? You're fucking the people that made you feel comfortable for being the new you tear you down or make you feel. So it's an interesting thing that, like, I still think that goes back down to doing the time. Like, that could be the time that you've done after your corporate shit, but you still have to do that time too, where people expect shit of you and fuck shit up and whatever. So that's doing time as well. Doing time after doing time.
Yeah. Always gonna be doing some type of time, man.
But I think, it never ends. Like, it doesn't end until you die.
100%.
I really think that's just the way. It doesn't end until you die.
No.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you 100% on that. 100%. But if you're not willing to do it, or you don't know that is the case, then you're gonna get that tough awakening someday.
Oh yeah, no matter who you are, the shit's gonna hit the fan for you at some point in life. Like, it just, always will. And then sometimes it hits you multiple times.
Mm.
And chances are, if you've dealt with it before, you'll be okay. You know,
you'll
you'll deal with it again. But I'm always dumbfounded by some of the most amazing artists that have killed themselves, and some of them, like Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, did an amazing show the night that he died. And you've got like thousands of people in the audience that are loving what you just did tonight. They're going home with so many good vibes, and then you go to your hotel room and you kill yourself. And it's like, that freaks me out, because you can get to a point where you really don't give a fuck. Like, he didn't give a fuck about what those people, that they needed more of him, that they wanted more albums, that they wanted to hear him, see him again. At that moment, it's like, it's fascinating to me that it can get so dark for some people that they can't even see what happened an hour before.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. So that's a reality of things as well. So, those guys that are trolling and shit, they have no fucking idea, man. You could be pushing someone, in the 80s and stuff like that. We knew that you wouldn't bully someone because you'd know that, fuck, you could be the one responsible for really hurting them. But now it's like, oh, man, people won't be thinking like that. People are just crazy.
Yeah, dude. Well, a lot of people do things like behind a screen they'd never do to someone's face.
Oh, isn't that a reality?
That's a whole different fucking gamut, right? Like, that shit's just nuts to me, period.
But that's why I like seeing people face to face, because there's no Instagram and,
Yeah,
like,
man.
put the phones down for a second and let's leave the phones in this room, and let's move to the other room and leave the phones in the other room.
Yeah.
No
and that's just different when you don't curate it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're not in control of this conversation that's about to happen, because I'm going to speak shit and shit's going to come out and fucking, we just have to deal with it. So, I like that. I think, like, yeah, for me, it's a lot like what Leslie does with Finding Space. It's this introspective, Leslie posts up these things on Instagram, and when I'm checking out all this crap that's on there, sometimes I come across one of his little text sayings, and it's like a few words that just make me calm the fuck down for a second. So take a breather. Yeah.
It's almost what we need in this world, man. That's what I feel, It's just the fact that, like I said, shit is so fast all the time that we just need a little break. Just need to press pause for a little bit, just to recenter and just understand, again, whatever is racing around in our heads isn't necessarily us. And we just got to be able to breathe, humble ourselves, and again, take responsibility for our own shit and just think for ourselves for a bit.
Yeah, I like that. I think you come from a place where, you practice meditation and stuff like that. And that's still really foreign to a shit ton of people on the planet, right?
Totally.
Like myself included. But Kimball Chan, he put me through a meditative session, and he got me to shut my eyes, and we were out on a really sunny deck outside. It was a really beautiful day. And he got me to think about this huge tree that was in my backyard, but with my eyes shut. And he got us to think about this tree in really explicit detail. Then he just threw a bomb at us and just said, well, you're not that tree. You're not your thoughts. And it just fucked me up. I was just like, holy fuck, you're right. That's fresh, And so, like, yeah, there's a lot to be learned from being able to, woosah. It's like, fucking take that time out. There's a lot to be said for it. It's like, even with the social media, like when I used to get in amongst it, and like every time there was a bit of a negative or a trolly comment, I would love to comment back with the ultimate troll comment. It's so trolly that it makes them look like absolute idiots, right? But half the time I would comment too soon, because the next morning I'd wake up and go, fuck, I should have written this instead. It would have fucking trolled them way harder. So there's that as well, you know? Like sometimes you do need to be able to catch yourself out. And so now it's like, I don't even comment anymore. It's just like, oh, I could say this. I could make them up. Just, it's even better if I just say nothing, and that takes even more control.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
It was easier for me to just reply back with some negativity and stoop down to their level and outsmart them in that way. But it's like, what's the point?
It's the difference between, you know, an emotional reaction and a thought out response or no response, you know?
Well, now it's no response.
Correct.
Yeah.
Totally.
Or just shadow ban them, because that's a thing these days. They keep posting, which is annoying because you still see their posts, but nobody else can see them. But it's still pretty annoying.
Yeah.
It still frustrates me, you know. It still frustrates me when even some of the girls that I shoot get comments that like they'll be linking to their Patreon or whatever it's how they make money. But then there'd be guys commenting saying, "But Pornhub is free for fuck's sake," and stuff like that. It's like, man, I want to comment, but I'm gonna stay out of it. I just stay out of it. It's easier, you know. Like politics was never my thing.
Man, it's a battle that you can never win, really, is it?
Well, because you care.
That's
you
right.
care. You wanna back someone. You know, you wanna have someone's back. But
yeah,
I can understand now that if someone says something negative to something that I post, I don't expect all my mates to jump in on them. It's not what I want. I don't want them to get involved in some shit fight with someone that is nobody.
That's it.
You know? So I understand if someone's got my back, it doesn't mean they have to jump in and say shit on social media to save me. It's not what I'm expecting. So yeah, it's interesting.
All right, that was a robust conversation, man. It's a really good conversation.
I kind of knew it would be.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for joining us, man, today.
No,
is there anything else you guys wanted to cover off before we wrap? Anything on your minds?
I reckon we'll have you back, Justin.
Thanks, boys. No, but let me know if you guys share this around, and I'm more than happy for people to hear this. And if there's some trolls in the comment, please comment back. Yeah, let's smash them.
But yeah, I mean, for the audience, Justin, if you want people to know where to find you,
no, they'll find me. They'll find me. Just Google me, and the worst of me will rock up, I'm sure.
Easy. We might help people with just a couple of links if in the show notes, mate. But yeah, Shaun, where can people find you, mate?
Best place is Instagram. So Shaun_Coop, SHAUN_Coop. Hit me up there. How about you, mate?
Yeah, just find me on my website, findingspace.co, and on Facebook and Instagram, again, it's at findingspace.co.
Awesome, man. So had a really good time with this chat today. Thanks a lot again, Justin, for jumping on.
Nice to meet you, Shaun.
You too, man. I'm hoping to have a lot more conversations with you.
So, oh yeah, hopefully get to meet you in real life when all of this crap is over.
Yeah, man, for sure. Crack open.
Us three should grab some beers.
Sounds good. And yeah, man, we talked about a lot today, and I'm sure there's nuggets in here that people will really benefit from. So you guys out there listening, if there's anything, you found interesting, really enjoyed the conversation, just share it with one other person. That's how we grow this podcast. Be grateful for that. And yeah, until next time, guys, thanks for joining us.
Thanks again, Justin. See you guys.
Bye.